Okay, everybody, welcome to our third webinar about the data portal. Today we'll be giving you lots of information about how our data portal works, how you access it, and various different bits. Firstly, I would just like to go through a couple of bits with you, for those of you that are new to using Zoom. So firstly, you won't be able to speak as an attendee. It's all only the speakers and myself that can speak during the session. If you want to chat with us, you can do it via the chat session, the chat piece here. Q&As are via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and you can play around with audio settings in the audio setting section. I'd like to introduce Sarah and Chris, our two speakers for today. Sarah is our data coordinator. Would you like to say hello, Sarah?
Hello and good afternoon.
Hello. And Chris is our data portal development lead.
Hi guys.
Hi. So without further ado, we'll make a start. I'll hand over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much indeed. So so my job really in Swansea is leading upon, as Claire mentioned, developing the data portal and making it a resource which is usable for everybody, and also obviously making data highly accessible to all researchers of all walks of life. So we relaunched the data portal website and its functionalities back in November of this year, along with some aims that we wanted to do to basically give wider open access to metadata for the cohorts that we work with in Deep UK, and to acknowledge each of the parts of the infrastructure that we have on a front end basis and right through to the back end as well, where analysis can take place. So the first aim that we wanted to really broadcast is the identification of the cohorts that we have available in Deep UK, and using specific tools which we'll go into slightly more detail during the webinar. The first aim obviously is to identify these according to the analyses that different researchers want to run. And of course, this being an industry specific webinar today, this kind of, as well as the epidemiology that we support, we're obviously looking to work with industry on a higher level for drug development cases, and also if you're outside of pharma, for kind of healthcare technology programs as well. So aside from the identification of cohort data, the other two aims that we wanted to bring forward is obviously easy access to data. So it's obviously well known that across the UK, data is something we're quite good at, but it's also very difficult to get hold of, particularly if you are having to separately apply for data across different areas. So a central repository for this data based around remote access is what that we are promoting and have developed within Deep UK. So the access is managed by a centralized form that, again, Sarah will show you slightly later on. But the idea is that we facilitate the access to that and gain approval from various cohorts through DP UK. The final step to that, in line with our governance, is to allow for analytics to happen on the data within the data portal, which is a virtual desktop infrastructure that allows data to be moved to Swansea, but then made available to any researcher anywhere in the world, which allows different sites and different groups of researchers to work together at the same time on multiple sets of data. So within the data portal, there are cohorts working with us who amount to over 2 million participants. Currently on the data portal, we have around 600,000 participants from the 12 cohorts that we've been working with. And this is ever growing as we are able to integrate the cohorts onto the portal via legal agreements and robust governance behind the scenes, allowing them to retain a very, very active part in Deep UK, as well as enabling them to share data on a wider scale than they've previously been able to. So currently there are 46 cohorts, and in the next couple of weeks this will be going up to 48, all of whom range from very large scale, well-known cohorts such as UK Biobank and the Million Women Study, to those who are very specific and look at very, very detailed areas of dementia or aging or cognitive studies as well. And the one thing that we want to emphasize really for all of this is that the easy access to these cohorts is what Deep UK is trying to bring to the table.
Hi there, and so I'm Sarah and I'm DP UK data coordinator, but I'm also a researcher at the University of Oxford. And so I'm going to give you two aspects of DP UK. And so starting with a little bit about the variables that are available on the DP UK data portal. So we have more than 16,000 different types of variables across different modalities of data types. So we have physical examination data, imaging data, genotypic data, brain banking, biological samples, cognitive data, and mental health data. And all these different types of data are situated across the 40 different cohorts that we are busy uploading, as Chris said, onto the portal at the moment. And all of these different types of data will be accessible on the platform. And the way we're going to do this is through a data linkage system with a common ID. So no matter whether you are requesting genotype data or cognitive data, or you're looking at physical examination data with imaging data, you will be able to link these data types together using this common ID. For a single person, you will be able to access all these data on the single platform. So first of all, I'm going to take you through the journey. We see this as a research journey, and if you go on to the DP UK portal website, you'll see that we've laid the whole journey out systematically so that you go through a process of identifying your cohorts. And we have developed this through a systematic process of identification tools. On the portal, you'll see there is a cohort directory, which we're not showing you here, but you can click into the cohort directory and find out everything about each cohort, where they originated, how many participants are in each cohort, and details exactly about those cohorts, how many waves of data they've got, for example. And then there's also this tool, which we call our cohort matrix. And if you look here or look down on the left-hand side, all our cohorts will be listed all the way down to the bottom. And on the website, this is actually an interactive tool. So you'll be able to click on each of your selected cohorts on the left-hand side, having looked into the cohort directory, identified the cohorts that you're interested in, select them on the left-hand side, and then you'll be able to see exactly which variables each of those selected cohorts actually have within the cohort. Likewise, you can then reset the filter, and perhaps you're only interested in certain types of variables, which are listed across the top in the columns, and you want to see which cohorts have identical variables. So you're looking at a maximum volume or a number of variables, and that will bring up all the cohorts with identical variables. And so then you're able to work with this tool to identify the exact cohorts you would like to put in your application form. Now, over the next 3 to 6 months, we're developing these two tools, both this tool and the cohort directory, to become highly characterized tools, so that not only will you know, for example, that these cohorts have physical examination, cognition, and mental health, you will also know in cognition, for example, that it has executive function, it has speed of processing, and it has for example, memory. You will also know that within executive function, to measure that, it used a flanker arrow task and it used a Stroop word task. You will also know that it collected that in waves 2, 3, and 4. So there will be great detail within this tool so that you go forward in your application form knowing exactly what data you will be expecting to gather. Also, likewise for mental health, you will know that they have data on bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, depression. You will know for depression, for example, they use the GHQ, they use the HADS, and they use the COPE scale, for example. So very much a highly categorized tool. So you will go forward applying for your data with the knowledge you know exactly what data to apply for. So moving forward,
So one of the key things that we want for you to take away really from what the portal is able to give back to the researcher is not only coming to us to work with the cohort data that we're facilitating access to from the various cohorts from across the UK and internationally, you are also able to bring in your own data that you may have approval to already use on your own systems and combine that with the cohort data that we have. So the system that we have has a data in process where you can upload files directly to the virtual desktop infrastructure, which allows you to then work with these without obviously any extra approval, as it's data you're already approved to use for, and then work on combining this should you so wish. So within the actual desktop infrastructure itself, we have a preloaded set of software which acts as a statistical suite for researchers to analyse their data. And this comes with out-of-the-box software such as Stata, SPSS, obviously full Office use, and generally an R, Eclipse, and other database design materials as well. So generally what we're expecting a standard researcher to do would be to come in and make use of the standard floating desktop, as we call it, which allows you to access these standard suite of software and perform analyses within there. It is also possible to customize that with any software you already may have a license for, or add open source software as necessary for a particular study. The security around the environment means that you log into this using a two-factor authentication system, which simply means that we provide a USB physical token that is specific to any user account once approval has been granted to data. So it means upon login to the system, you use that in conjunction with your DPUK username to first get through one firewall, then a username and password to get through a second before actually being able to spin up the virtual desktop environment. So within the new data portal website, we've outlined the various areas of the analysis environment and given you some more information on this, from the basics of it through to the three areas I've just mentioned. One other thing to bear in mind with the analysis environment is that as it's worked on virtual desktop, that it is technically a remote desktop access you have to the data. Therefore, you cannot remove data files provided to you. However, we've got a data out mechanism that allows you to bring data files such as scripts, results, outputs, and any other derived data that you may have worked on and created during your analysis, which allows us to scrutinize what you're bringing out before it's allowed out of the environment, which allows us for this remote governance pattern within the DPUK data portal.
Okay, could we go back one slide, please? Is it possible to go back one slide? So I'm going to speak now and tell you a little bit about the different types of research projects that are available that have actually already been submitted into the data portal. So having clearly identified the cohorts that you've put them together, and now you have your research question. So having a look at what we've already received in the portal, and there are various stages of application. You can see that we've already got applications from Hong Kong, from Europe, and from the United Kingdom. And the diversity of these applications are not always exactly dementia focused, but we have various types of applications that have gone through the portal. And you can see that often these are collaborative projects. So if you're cited in a different country, for example, this does not actually stop you from applying for a project through the portal. And how this works is because of the remote desktop application, that all you do is you apply for your project, and because of the way the system works, you work on a virtual desktop. So we're bringing virtually the researcher to the data stays in the portal, you do not remove the data, you don't download the data. We send you out what's called a UB key, which you plug into your computer. It's a USB key, which unlocks the first stage of the security, and then the second stage would be a password. You could be in Hong Kong or Maastricht or the United Kingdom, and you may access the data that you have been granted through your proposal. So if you have restrictions on, for example, financial reasons, and you can't actually afford statistical software in a certain country, this won't actually be a restriction to be able to access data through the portal. And this is the wonderful thing about DPUK, that suddenly financial reasons, it's no longer a hindrance to accessing data in a collaborative form for some of these projects. I'm going to speak a little bit more about one of these projects that I'm actually involved in, and this is the project from Maastricht University. So this project, we're looking at predictors of successful aging in European super ages. And this is a cross-platform investigation, which we are actually working together with. This is a DPUK project with the European Medical Information Framework based in Maastricht. And what we've done is that we're a group of collaborators from Amsterdam, Maastricht, London, and Oxford. And we're trying to understand the secrets of successful cognitive aging. And this is of utmost importance, both from a socio-economic point of view and both from an epidemiological understanding as well. And as you can see, each of the collaborators in this project, we have someone who specialized in biomarkers, metabolomics, the 90-plus study researchers from Amsterdam, a pharma group, and myself in psychometrics, and someone here from Oxford in neurology. And this is where DPUK has such strength, that the six of us, we're collaborators from different parts of the world. We can actually come together, we access the same data on a virtual platform, and we're going to create a data set for 90-plus people across 2 different platforms in an opportunity that would not be possible otherwise. So really, this is an opportunity which DPUK has really opened up to us. So once you've identified your question, so if we move on, I'll show you our application form. So the application form, we designed to be as streamlined and straightforward and simple as possible. And really it was designed around 4 main sections. So we have our applicants, our project details, data requested, and scientific context, which requires a bit more detail. So over here, this is a real-life screenshot of the 6 cohorts which we requested for the 90-plus study. So we requested data from the Caerphilly study, from the CFAS study, the ELSA study, Generation Scotland, Million Women study, and the Whitehall study. We needed an extensive amount of data because we were looking for data in many different categories, and we were looking for all adults above the age of 90. There weren't many adults, of course, but we were looking for an extensive amount of data. And then we filled in our application form, we filled in all the scientific context, and these were approved by, fortunately, all 6 of our cohorts, and then we were able to access our data after all our approvals were granted. So over here, you'll see that we have, for each of these cohorts, there are a maximum amount of 18 categories of data. So you select the different categories of data according to your cohort. If you have a cohort which does not have data in one of these categories, this category will not be available to you. So you're welcome to select all 18 categories, but there is not an option to just say, well, I'll have all of the above. So we do require researchers to think about the categories of data that they really do require to answer the research question. So once you have access, you are given your research platform. So moving on, Chris will show you more about the research platform that you are given access to.
So the research platform has a launch page, as you can see represented here, which essentially allows you to see the projects that you're approved for, the start date and the end date of those projects, which are obviously the governance behind how long you're available to see the data for. And we run the virtual desktop through VMware software. So there is a free download for this, which goes onto your systems and is no more than a 200 meg download for most operating systems, depending on the latest client. So this means that whereas before someone would have to go to considerable compute expense on getting the software that we provide for people and researchers within the environment, this is all now virtually available by simply downloading the free VMware software. So as you will see next to Launch Platform, I'll just go briefly into the two mechanisms we also have on the platform, which are file out and file in requests. So as I mentioned previously, file in requests are where you're able to actually ally your own approved data that you already have access to, or bring in your own scripts or algorithms that you may wish to use within the virtual environment onto our systems. File out requests work exactly the same way, but the opposite way around. If you're within the environment, you're able to request certain files out, again, scripts, results, written work for publications, etc. And that comes through to us to approve before that is allowed out of the network. The Launch Platform button simply starts up VMware, which starts the two-factor authentication process, as I mentioned earlier, which will then allow you to spin up what is currently a Windows 7 desktop, as we will show you in a second. A Windows 7 desktop, which is soon to be upgraded to a Windows 10 desktop. And as you can see here, it's just an example of some of the stats packages that we have available for people to use. Of course, there are other software in here as well, as I mentioned, on database design, and of course for written work, and obviously a full suite of Microsoft Office products. But when you are in here, it works exactly the same as any other Windows desktop, with a full file directory, a user-specific area to be able to save files, and obviously the ability to save work collaboratively in project folders.
Great, thank you, Sarah and Chris. Now we've kind of come to the end of our presentation, so it's now time for some questions. If you do have any questions for us, please do add them via the black control panel at the bottom of your screen in the Q&A section. We do have one question for us, and that is, can I just have a look at the data without applying for it? Sarah, would you like to answer that one maybe?
Unfortunately, no. In order to see the data, you have to submit a full research proposal through the process that I've described, as in identifying your cohorts, filling in a full project proposal, having that go through a review here in Oxford and sent through to the cohorts themselves. You can't actually preview the data before submitting a full proposal.
Thank you, Sarah. That sounds very sensible. Yeah. Okay, another question we have is, what data can I download to my computer? Chris, would you like to answer this one?
Yes, so in terms of raw data provided by us and made available within the virtual desktop, there's no possibility of downloading that data for use outside of that. The whole purpose around the governance structure is that data is retained on Swansea servers for the UK at all times. However, the data out process that I referred to before does allow you to remove any analysis results that you have, and also any derived data that you may have got from the data that we originally provide to you. And that includes any other work that you may have been doing either collaboratively or on your own within that. So the process is simply to upload it into a space where we can review what you're removing, and then that gets approved or declined either way, depending on what you're bringing out of the system.
Brilliant, thank you, Chris. Next question is, do any of our variables include things like recording prescription medications in various participants' cohorts? Sarah, would you like to answer that?
Quite a few cohorts, well, most cohorts will have background or biographical or demographic information, health data, health questions, and a lot of them do record medications as one of these background or health variables. And this is often a question that is asked. And usually the way to find this out will be just simply to look in the matrix, to look in the cohort directory, and to see whether this was the type of question which was asked of the participants.
Brilliant, thank you, Sarah. Okay, we've got a question here as well. How do you download tables and figures created within the software packages to your university server or desktop? Chris, would you like to answer that?
So as previously, as I said, from within the various software that you're available that's available to use on the platform, these can be customized per user using package downloaders to actually customize the way that you can analyze data, obviously to your personal specialty. And when you've finished any work that you may wish to do within the environment, these can be saved to your own personal folders within the system and then requested out via the data out process. As I said, any downloads such as that will be scrutinized by DPUK as they make their way out of the system, but once they are out, then you're free to use those for outside publications and work as necessary.
Brilliant, thank you. And another question is, can I make amendments to a project and include more cohorts after a project has been accepted? Sarah.
Yes, you're free to apply for more cohorts, but it would require to resubmit the proposal to the cohorts, and this in no way would mean that it would be automatically accepted. It would be a full submission of another application. It would be the same application, but going out to more cohorts again.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I think that's fine. Our final question. If anybody has any more, please quickly pop them up onto the Q&A board while I'm just finishing off on the next bit, but I think we can kind of move on. So I'd like to thank you all for listening to us. We've got our annual conference coming up on the 23rd of April. We'll be looking in more depth into the data portal, among other things, at that conference. We have an analyst conference in June as well. And if you're interested in our data, and you can apply for a Discovery Award. We're now accepting applications for the Discovery Awards. Individual awards of up to £50,000 will be made to researchers with the best proposals for analysis via the data portal. All links can be found from our Dementias Platform UK website. You will be receiving an email tomorrow with links to a recording of this that we'll put up onto our website, and also a small short survey feedback. For those that do participate in the survey, there will be a small gift coming to you in the post as well. So that's great. I just want to have a quick look. We've got one last question that's come in from Gregory, and that's, in terms of confidentiality of access, is the user or company access communicated within DPUK or outside? Sarah, would you like to answer that, please?
Sorry, could you repeat that? Or Chris would probably be... Chris, would you like to answer that?
Shall I repeat the question?
No, it's fine. I got it up. So okay. Essentially, accessing the DPUK environment, everything is done on a very open access manner in terms of the way that we're transparent with accessing the data. So projects that are ongoing within the environment are made, details of them are made available on our website, so people can see exactly what's happening with DPUK data at any one time. In terms of actually giving users access, this is done on an individual basis. So this will be conferred on a one-to-one basis with the person. And of course, if there are a group of researchers working together, then that is done with them as a small consortium rather than as a company, as as a whole. It will be done on an individual basis. As I said, every single person who needs access to data within DPUK must sign an agreement with us about data use, and that's never overarching. That is always with the singular person themselves. So regardless of whether it's an entire company wishing to have access, every single person under that umbrella who may wish to get the data will have to sign individual access permutations with us for that, and people will be provided with their own account and YubiKey access.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris. And thank you, everybody, for listening. That's the end of today's webinar. Thank you very much.